Hi, folks. I'm Dan McDermott. Welcome. I'm with the Google Plus Week team and some other folks. We're going to talk about Google Drive. So first off, let me introduce the folks we have. First, we have Alan Furstenberg, who is somewhere in New York, and that's all we're telling. I'm Dan McDermott, host of Google Plus Week and publisher of the Lynchburg Times, Warren County Report, and Frederick County Report newspapers in Virginia. Of course, what Hangout is complete without a member of the British aristocracy. Lord Parker is here. Your Grace, always a pleasure, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
And then we have Mr. Mike Downs, who's just finished a unique British dish, which is one of the ones we're not allowed to pronounce, I think.
It's this beef soup, I think.
Some sort of soup.
There you go. It's finished.
It was delicious, and he didn't give us any of it. Oleg Moskalinsky is here. He is in Kirkland, Washington, and he is the official Apple representative for the Hangout. And just kidding. And then, of course, Scott's Sal or Soul?
I think it's...
Scott is here. Sans microphone from redeemingsouls.org. That's S-O-L-E-S, like the fish or the popular shoe ingredient. Okay, so we want to talk about this cool Google Drive thing. And first, I'll just say my first impression. I downloaded the application, but apparently that's optional. It is not a replacement, but a new way of accessing your Google Docs stuff, plus general storage. It appears to be definitely a competitor to Dropbox and other virtual storage things. I think that it's going to be a moneymaker for them because you can buy different tiers all the way up to 16 terabytes for I think $800 a month or something. But the lower tiers it's all priced very competitively. I think it's $5 or something for the first tier, which compares to I think like $15. $249, and then but it's dramatically cheaper than Dropbox. So we'll be seeing Dropbox look at their pricing and innovation, like Dropbox just added direct links. So we're going to see in much the same way Facebook and Google Plus are adopting each other's features. We're going to see the same thing with Dropbox versus Google Drive and other similar applications. So who wants to go first on first impressions and kind of why this is useful and interesting? Mike, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, all I want to say is that just for me, because I've not read about this yet, and so I'm the one who doesn't know anything. I'm a Dropbox user. I've never paid a cent for it, and if I was going to upgrade to like the 16 terabytes, can somebody explain to me what on earth I am putting in these files to be so much big,
videos, pictures, everything for business use. There's companies that do data warehousing that have massive amounts of storage, and so for those, it wouldn't be for individuals. You don't need it as an individual, but for companies, it's very possible. Storage is a huge deal, and being able to have one of the problems with Dropbox, for example, is there's a limit of how much you can buy. You cannot buy a tremendous amount of storage, and if you need it, you cannot. But with this thing, you'd be able to. That's fairly significant numbers.
So just to follow that up, as a personal user, maybe some personal users watching this show, would they be expected sensibly to pay? What are the limits for personal use?
Here's the thing. For 16 terabytes, probably not. Especially since that in order for you to carry the 16 terabytes, you might probably have a good need to have a disk of about that size locally as well. So that's a little unreasonable, but it's the sort of thing where if you take a lot of pictures or a lot of movies and you want to be able to back them up into the cloud and share it with other people in the cloud, either for these other people to look at the pictures and movies or to share pictures and movies with you, that's the sort of thing that Dropbox has always been good for, and I think that's the sort of thing that that this is going to take it just a little bit beyond, above where Google Docs were. It starts getting into that sharing and how do we all share family photos and family movies and those sorts of things. So I think that's where we're going.
I think it gets a lot more than that into it. But
let me go to that question. Let me go to that question because I could tell you a practical business application. For example, we in the newspapers we have satellite offices, right? The farthest our papers are apart is about a 3.5-hour drive, and so we have staff in all 3 locations. And we have layout people who are sending files and having to email them back and forth. And some of these are, they're media files, a photograph to go in an ad, that sort of thing. Well, this is also a competitor to, like Comcast has like a virtual LAN where you can be in multiple locations and you have a sort of a shared that drives over a wide area. And this is something for that. Imagine, let's say you are the Beirut bureau for ABC News, and you've got to access media and stuff like that. Imagine what the fortune that they're paying for that connectivity, so they can quickly get file footage of a former prime minister for some purpose, and that sort of thing. So really, you move into a virtual LAN type of product once you get into that kind of level. And $800 for enterprise users, as we know with folks who use Salesforce and things like that, that's nothing. And that'll probably increase over time as people approach that limit and request it. But they just they don't want to get too confusing and have too many tiers. But I could see like media, or let's say The Simpsons. The creators of the TV show Simpsons. I remember I was looking into getting a hard drive replaced once. And one of the advantages of this is, of course, you don't have to worry about your hard drive crashing and losing data, which has happened to probably everyone in this room at some point, before we... but this is a replacement for, what's that service that's promoted on all the tech shows that backs up your...
Carbonite.
Carbonite, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a replacement for that. This is a competitor to that. It's not just a competitor to Dropbox. But really quick, and then Alan, the thing is that I was looking at some company that had I forget what they call it, the clean room, where they actually take your hard drive apart and they try to repair it and give you the data that's lost on there. And one of the anecdotes they said was that one time they lost, I think, 5 episodes of The Simpsons when a hard drive crashed. And you can imagine what that is worth. Impossible to replicate. You've got to get it no matter what the cost is. So this is a big deal, and it's a competitor to a lot of products because, of course, once again, it's Google's footprint everywhere and Google's integration with all of their other stuff. So, Alan?
I think looking at it in terms of a backup of your local drive isn't quite the same thing. Just the way that it's set up for local drive integration, basically what it lets you do is create a local folder, and everything that's put in that folder gets gets shared into the cloud storage. So you can create this virtual folder and put it on multiple computers. So anything you put in the folder in one place gets sent to the cloud and gets shared to the other one. It's not really set up as a backup system. A backup system would say, okay, let's look at your entire drive and act on that. And that's what things like Carbonite do. So yes, you can use it to back up certain files, but you have to remember to put it into this virtual drive, and you have to make sure that it gets synced up correctly. And so is it there? Maybe. It's not quite useful for that, but I can see people using it that way. I think where this is going to start coming in interesting is to see if there are any other developers that go out there and make it more automatic. And that'll be interesting to see, because one of the things that comes with Google Drive is the ability to install Google Drive apps. And it's going to be interesting to see what those will do and how those integrate.
Yeah, okay, I'm sure backup will be one of the things that people will do. But going back to what Mike was talking about is, unless you get more storage, for most people, 5 GB for backups is totally insufficient these days. I mean, that's not going to be enough. Yeah. So you can see on my screen, Dan, if you can pull up the screen, please.
Yep, I got it.
These are the prices basically they're charging. Talking about just $5. Basically, you get 20 gigabytes of storage for $250 a month.
That's nothing.
Which is very very inexpensive. But I want to indicate that I bought 20 gigabyte upgrade for my Picasa when Google offered it. That was $5 for a year. So they're more expensive than they used to be. I guess no, it says $5 a year. So
it's the ability to be in multiple places at the same time.
No, I take it back. Okay, they're telling me on the screen that right now my current plan is 20 gigabytes at $5 a year, as you can see on the left.
Yeah.
On the left. And then the next one is $249 a month to get 25 gigabytes additional for G Drive and Picasa. So
it's gone up.
It'll kick it up to 30 gigs. But you can see you can go for just $5 a month. You can get additional 100 gigabytes, which is of course a ton of storage. And then the backups becomes a real deal.
Yeah.
People need to understand that backups, just like Carbonite, are a little bit on the slow side, depending how much activity you have, because it's totally limited to your bandwidth. So if you have a really slow connection to the internet, it'll take forever to back up your files, but it will do it over time as long as you leave the computer on. It will do it. But I want to talk a little more about the actual, for people who are not into the tech stuff, let's talk about what this actually is first. You want to talk about that, Dan?
Yeah, let me introduce our two new folks here real quick, and then we'll go right back to you, Oleg. First, we have Darlin. Darlin Ricardo, welcome to my first hangout with you. Nice to meet you. Tell me a little bit, where are you?
I'm here. I'm from Brazil. I'm 18 years old, and I'd like to talk about the Google Drive. It's pretty interesting, the app. So,
well, great. It's good to meet you, and we'll chat with you in just a moment. And then I'm going to go, and folks watching on YouTube or on Google Plus, we're looking at the comments. So please, if you have questions or comments, just chime in there. Let me go to Melissa Carlson.
Did you give me the other one?
You're
Cash?
you with Sarah?
No, actually, I work at a KRNB, Channel 4 in Reno, and we're doing, like Sarah, we're doing live hangouts on air to broadcast. And I apologize for it being so loud right here. We're currently in the newsroom where news is going on. But I'm working with Channel 4. It's an NBC affiliate, just like Sarah in Reno, and we're using those hangouts live on air, a lot like Sarah's doing. She started, obviously. We're following behind. And so I just popped in because I saw the invite, and I'm actually headed out. I just wanted to pop in and say hello, but I'm headed out to do our webcast. Starts in about 7 minutes. But I also want to say olá, pessoa ali no Brasil, outra pessoa que fala português. Olá. So I wanted to. It's not very often you always get to see somebody who speaks Portuguese in here, and I speak Portuguese.
That's what it was. I thought it was Russian. Okay.
No.
Yeah, we're going to switch to Russian in just a minute.
Melissa, you have 30 seconds to tell us what your initial thoughts are on the Google Drive. I mean, this is pretty exciting, isn't it?
You know, I haven't even taken a look at it as of yet. This is the first that I've seen a little bit here and there, but I've been looking for news all day, so I haven't had a chance to really read into it. But I hate that I have to leave, because I'd be interested in talking to you guys about what's going on. But of course, the show calls, and so here we are at 10:53, and I'm on air in 7 minutes. So now I'm going to head downstairs. But if you guys are still on when I'm here, when I get out, I will. I'll come back and watch. Hello, Mike Downs. Hola, Mike Downs. That's for you. Right?
I'm eating a hamburger. Oleg's muted me. I'm eating a sweet. Sorry. Hi, Melissa. I'll catch up with you.
Okay, sounds good.
Melissa, nice to finally meet you. I know we've shared posts and stuff back and forth, but it's great to finally meet you, and look forward. We do this almost every day at different times.
Very cool.
We can't stop talking. We're all ADD, and none of us take Ritalin, so here we are.
I love it. That's me too. Please continue to send me the invite, and I'll pop in again. For real. All right, you guys. I'll see ya.
Thanks, Melissa. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, awesome. That is Melissa from KRNV in Reno, Nevada.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Oleg, tell us, for folks just tuning in now, tell us exactly, and back to you, shout out back to you in South Africa. Thanks so much for watching. Okay, Oleg, tell us what this is exactly.
Well, it's what it is. It's a combination of different things that people have done before with a little twist that will make it incredibly potent for people going forward. Number one, it's a way for you to store information that you need to store somewhere in the cloud. So it's a cloud storage service similar to, for example, Dropbox is the most famous for that. There's some other services, A Drive, there's Box.net, there's, Google Docs itself allows you to store stuff. So all of these things basically allow you to put your information somewhere in the cloud, as they call it, meaning on somebody else's server, and be managed by it. So that's one thing that this service is, which of course is no big deal because tons of other people are doing it already anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Then you look at it from a second...
Well, Oleg, can you stop a second and explain to people exactly what Dropbox is? Because I'm sure there are people out there who've never heard of that either. Just the basic fundamentals of how it works.
We're not talking about Dropbox, let's talk about...
Well, no, fine, then let's talk about this feature that is duplicating. Basically what it does is it puts a folder on your hard drive. Anything you put in that folder gets copied up into the cloud. You can put the same folder on any other machine, and so anything you put in any of these folders gets distributed to everyone who's got the same virtual folder.
Okay.
That's Dropbox, and that's the first component of Drive.
Let's get back to that. So anyway,
ask a couple other questions real quick that I'm about to lose on the YouTube channel because I can't open the whole thing.
Okay.
We've got I have the same 20 gigabytes. and it's written I couldn't use it with G Drive. I'm not sure what he's talking about. We were wondering if this can be used as a basis for a light media database. I would imagine that, remember, there'll be a lot of apps written, like Chrome extensions and apps using this.
Oh,
so
but let's just tell people what it is. Let's not get into the things that it's not. Let's talk about
well, you don't have to introduce. I'm just saying that these comments are going to disappear, and I just wanted to...
So they disappear then. So basically, for people who are listening who actually care about what it is, so number one, it's a storage. Basically, it's an off-site storage. You can store your information somewhere other than your computer. Number two, what it does is, like Alan pointed out, jumping ahead of my point I was going to make anyway, in promoting Dropbox, is it allows you to sync this information, this content, among various computers and mobile devices that you may have. So all you have to do is just have the app on your computer, on your, for example, tablet, and on your phone, and as long as you log in with the same account, that means that anywhere you put the content on G Drive, it will be available from any of those devices. You can have as many computers, as many devices as you wish, and it will be automatically synchronized. So if you want to make a change to a document via your phone, then that change will automatically be reflected when you look at that document on your computer or on your tablet. So it doesn't really matter which device you use in your scope of devices. Information winds up being automatically updated and synchronized. You don't have to do any syncing, any manual stuff like you used to do in the old days. It does that. And that's, as Alan pointed out, basically what Dropbox does. The beauty of this Google Drive thing is where they took it to the next step, because both the storage and synchronization is nothing new. So that's, 5 gigabytes is not bad, but it's also not that huge amount of room. So all of these things do not make it compelling in terms of why would I switch from Dropbox to this. What the next thing they did, which will make you want to switch from Dropbox to this, is ability to search. And that's something right now that's only available in an application like Evernote, where you're able to search for information, even if it's graphical, and they do an optical character recognition scanning, and they convert that. So if you're looking for the word Alan, and I had a graphic that had Alan written on it, just using graphics, it will actually recognize that it says Alan. And that's what puts Google Drive way beyond pretty much everything else that's out there, except for applications like Evernote, which allows you to do optical character recognition from graphics. So that's one thing that definitely stands it apart from everybody else and makes it extremely compelling to switch to use that. So that's one thing. Second thing is they're tying it to Google Docs, and as Alan pointed out before we started this, that it will become the default storage for all the Google Docs documents. It makes it so you can now use that with actual applications and store information from those applications into this Google Drive, and then you have the full search capability, including graphics, finding text within graphics, and that makes it, and then ability to buy more storage. All of these make it much more compelling than just about any other service I've seen there. Then if you add on top of that ability, which I'm sure Google will come out with, to have APIs and have development community develop applications, probably there's going to be all kinds of backups capabilities.
It's released with the API. The API is already available. It was released with the Google Drive API.
So
as Google often does.
Much more compelling, because then all kinds of apps can be written to harness all this power. And when you look at that in overall and see how inexpensive it is, it's a complete killer situation for any other service out there. There's nobody out there that matches this capability, and most people do pretty much the same thing. If you look at these different services, the only one that I saw recently that's definitely a standout is called Cubby. And Cubby is from LogMeIn people. And I don't want to get into that because it's, we're talking about Google Drive, but that's something that's similar but different, allows you to put a little spin on it, that allows you to do some cool things. But this particular one, Google Drive, will also, because of your space not being so limited, and because of ability to share, just like you share documents in Google Docs and spreadsheets and all the different things you do in Google Docs, it puts that whole universe into one useful component that everybody can get and use. And of course, you get into it initially at no cost at all, which makes it even more compelling. And then on top of it, you're adding capabilities. For example, when you're editing documents, you're able to go to any version of that document, and you can also collaborate and work on that document simultaneously with multiple people. Nobody else has this capability combined with all these services as one unit, and that's what Google is putting forth. And that's what I think makes it so incredibly compelling in terms of people starting to use it And for businesses, I think it's a unbelievably useful thing going forward.
Oleg, it sounds to me like what you're saying is this is a much bigger deal than people realize.
Oh, absolutely. Because most people say it's just a Dropbox. It's not a Dropbox. The ability to search in graphics for text is a huge thing. I mean, I know from my own clients, I have some real estate clients who absolutely would love to have this capability if it does a good job. And I'm sure Google will, they indicated that they're going to continue to improve it. That I'm sure it's not perfect. None of the OCR stuff is. But, looking at what Evernote has done with optical character recognition, you can make it pretty compelling. And I think that's...
What about videos, Oleg? What can it do with videos? What can it do with videos?
They didn't say videos. They did not say videos.
No, that's okay. I'm looking for like the sexy part of it that's really cool. And in the searching pictures and OCR and stuff sounds pretty cool. Size.
Well, here's the interesting thing, Mike. They've talked about how the space will be shared with Picasa, but they haven't given any indication about how videos will be shared with YouTube. So here's again a break in the two services that Google offers.
One thing that I'm curious about, and this is for Alan or Oleg, and then I want to get Lord Parker's take in a sec because he had an interesting question just a moment ago. But let me ask you this: like, when I have a WordPress or any kind of website, you typically would use MySQL database, whatever, and then you're worried about your site crashing, and you have your database emailed to you every night, that sort of thing. Are we going to see like a WordPress integration or some kind of database where you can like store your table information in Google Drive?
Right now, they already store it in spreadsheets. Remember that.
I think we'll be able to see something like that. I think the biggest problem is you're not going to see it as a live backup of either of those because almost every database doesn't want its backend files changing out from underneath it. So while you may see something in WordPress that you'll be able to do a nightly backup, or your MySQL, you can get a nightly backup saved to your Google Drive. It's not going to do an automatic restore. It's not going to do an automatic sync. And the reason for that is quite simply it's just too dangerous.
With APIs, you could. I mean, you could actually write. That's the beauty from the API standpoint. If they make it so you can use any of the features, then you can write just about anything you want to do with it.
Right. So that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the biggest problem is
let me address
worrying about synchronization and concurrency.
Let me address real quick Mike's point. Mike, the deal about what you were saying, where it becomes compelling, forgetting about the video part, is let's say you have a business that does somebody who travels and does a lot of receipts for reimbursements. The easiest thing to do is to scan those reimbursements with the phone. Okay? The problem with scanning all these things with the phone is unless you have something like Evernote, most of the programs that do the just regular, you take a picture stuff, they can't read what it actually says in text. So searching becomes useless. You can't search for that. This way, you're now able to say, look for the words airport, and now it will show you all your receipts that have the word airport in it. That's what makes it, really compelling for search purposes, because I know normally we don't think of, okay, you have a picture, why would you have some text on it to do anything like that? Normally you wouldn't. But if you start thinking about scanning paper materials or anything that has text on it and doing taking pictures of those, then it becomes much, much more compelling.
Can I ask a quick question for those people who are watching? Let's say I had two machines with 500, I don't know, megabytes or gigabytes, whatever, doesn't matter. You said there's a mobile version of it. When people are carrying around their mobile phone, they're not going to have all their files on the mobile phone, are they? How does that work?
What Dropbox does right now, Alan, do you want to take it?
I don't actually know in detail how it's going to work. I do know
let's wait for a comment there, Alan. Go real quick, and I've got to acknowledge these online comments and questions real quick.
Yeah, no, I was going to address some of them too. Okay. For Mike, to answer Mike, and actually to answer some of the questions we're getting in YouTube as well. Currently, for files that are your files, a text file, for example, or a video file, those are all synced in whole to the central cloud server. So you get a copy, an actual copy, on every machine, and I assume on the Android device as well. For files that Google Docs understands, so for a doc Word file, for example, or a doc spreadsheet, the actual copy is not saved locally. All that's saved locally is a reference to it and a setup so that if you do want to go edit it, you're taken to Google Docs and can do the editing from there. And I assume that's going to be how it works on the Android as well. There is a button that can say, sync the actual file so I can use it offline, but it's not clear how all of that's going to work. Go ahead, Dan and Lord Parker.
Okay, Lord Parker, real quick. I know you got to go for a moment. You want to give us your quick take on this?
Well, yeah, very briefly. I mean, for me, I can see a major implication here. I've got a Raspberry Pi, yeah? So the Raspberry Pi is connected to the TV via an HDMI cable. So what I'm thinking here is I can take that 100 gigabytes and I can stream my video via the Raspberry Pi from Google Drive through my telly and watch TV programs from my Google account onto my TV. That's one use I see.
It's all depending on your bandwidth in your house. That's the bottleneck.
My bandwidth is fine. That's
if your bandwidth is fine, there's no reason not to be able to do it. It's just going to be another storage thing for you, so shouldn't be any problem at all.
That's going to be one of my primary uses of it. Will be to have like the videos and the photographs that I take and be able to stream them straight into the big 50-inch plasma TV on the wall.
Yep.
It's really funny how some folks are viewing this as just another Dropbox, but really it's so much more. This is like inventing the hard drive.
It's not so much more. It's a little more, and Google's not really sold why it's so much more yet.
It is definitely so much more. I
will be back shortly.
Can I ask another question? Here's a question.
Hang on one sec, please. Let me look at these comments online. We're being rude to the folks watching.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. South Africa for the win. Back at you, buddy. Can I use okay.
Yeah, basically the person asked you a database question. Can they use Access? The answer is it's not a wise idea to do so.
I see a couple people picking on Oleg. Please, hopefully that's a new meme.
And that's just indicates we have very bright users.
Yes. One person says angry Russian and talks about the guy in the red shirt. I would not store your Access files directly on here. It would be dangerous if the files were changed behind your back.
I said that, Dan.
Okay.
yeah.
Here we go with all the paranoid users and everybody.
AF from New York. Yeah, conspiracy theorists. Now go on, Karen.
So in essence, if you have a virus on your computer, they can share it on all your drives with themselves, or is this some sort of security behind sharing the drive? That's an interesting question. This is a storage area. That means there are other file types can also be uploaded here. In fact, you could rename it an aeroplane and it would still work. We manage our timesheets separately in separate databases, so no cross-network database, so all of our client tracking is all over the place. A negative comment. Dropbox has advantages. MP3s and videos can be played from your Dropbox folder. G Drive requires downloading them.
That's not entirely clear. No, that's not entirely clear.
Yeah. Plus the deal with Dropbox, streaming at the real time, most people right now don't have the bandwidth to do a video streaming directly from onto their mobile device. Especially if you're on an airplane or something.
Hang on. Okay, finish up with that, and I'll point out this brings up a good point. Okay, well, Dan's looking again. This brings up an interesting point, however, that Google Drive, although it's been integrated with Google Docs, is not integrated with Google Play or Google Music. So
at this point, that does not mean it's not going to be.
Well, okay, rapid fire answer. Is this stored locally and then synced with the cloud, or interacted through an interface of some sort?
Both. Next.
Yeah, both.
The lack of folder support, a la SkyDrive Mesh, is one reason why I won't fully switch over to another service. Right now, I use Dropbox side by side with Mesh. Get a real timesheet system, whatever. Also, you can embed MP3s and videos on sites that support it using Dropbox, and then again, not so.
You'll be able to do that with Drive. Keep going.
I'll probably swap out Dropbox for G Drive and be using it side by side with Mesh until G Drive supports folders.
G Drive does support folders. I have no idea what they're talking about.
But they're not called that, right? Or they are?
They're called folders.
Are they?
They're called folders, yeah.
I'm not sure what the person's saying. Let me see if I can
Ahmed says, I love Google so much, and isn't Evernote free? So why do I need this? I got Evernote. Quick.
Evernote is not free from storage, and if you want to use, the character recognition, OCR, and all that stuff, you'll have to pay. They charge us $45 a year right now for a regular Evernote account for 1 gigabyte a month of use.
Is there a limit to the upload size? I know there's a limit to your overall storage, but I guess
there is no limit. There's no limit as long as it's no more than what your drive is. So if you got 5 gigabyte size drive, then it means you can do files up to 5 gigabytes and you can share them.
Do we know that, or are we speculating?
Yeah, no, that's what it said. We know that.
Okay. And then, will there be Linux support?
There are already people complaining that there is no Linux support out of the box, but given the fact that there is a full API, you can bet that there's going to be Linux support probably, what time is it now? You're going to have Linux file system support pretty quick.
Best comment, you're making the Russian angry. That's a story.
Always like that.
Next.
All right, and then the other comments, that's the YouTube live comments, and then let's look at here, too much background noise, blah, blah, blah. Is Google Drive related to the, is Google Drive, this is a really interesting question, is Google Drive related to the Google Plus white space? How do you share photos from your Google Drive to Google Plus?
That's actually pretty easy, from what I understand, and I haven't seen it working for me yet. But if you have a photo on Google Drive and you go to share something, you click on the camera icon, there will now be an option that says from your Google Drive.
Yeah, so that's what it's going to be. Or you can drag it. You can always drag stuff from one place to the other.
What about integration Drive with Blogger? Is it just photos or maybe something new? Rapid fire, guys.
Probably the same thing. They'll give you an option to share from Google Drive as one of the places you can get, so like Alan just said.
I'm imagining that integration with Blogger will take at least 2 years, if not longer. Next.
Nah, come on.
Checking the API, it's pretty good.
Come on. Blogger can't even figure out how to integrate with Google Plus correctly yet.
No, disagree with that, Alan. Disagree with that.
Blogger integration with Google Plus is horrid. Next.
No, next. It's very good. Next, Dan. Next.
No, it's horrible, Mike.
No, it's next, Dan.
No, it's horrid.
So we all agree.
It's disgusting.
No, it's very, very good, Dan. Next.
No, it's very, very bad. It's horrendous.
The Englishman.
And a disgrace to Google.
Checking the API is pretty good. You have a are you using the micro? It sounds like you got the vacuum cleaner problem again.
No, it's the talk gadget. Next.
I don't have access yet, but it seems pretty cool to me. I don't have mass amounts of data, but I like the Google integration.
What? Never mind. Keep going.
Shriek says, I will not expect the new product to be completely integrated from the word go and mean everything a user needs. I understand what you were saying, Alan, but I think the potential is huge.
Shriek, considering this product has been in development for years, I am shocked that there is not more integration. Next.
I disagree with Alan Furstenberg. It is so much more than a Dropbox or any other solution out there, considering how it integrates with the Google ecosystem as well as the possibilities of the API.
Doesn't mean it's been developed for you.
Let me add OCR.
No, it's been developed for 3 years. It's been in development for years. And I don't see how this API is any wower than Dropbox's API. Yes, Dropbox has an API.
It doesn't have search.
DVM2 says he's downloaded the desktop app, but my account can't use it. Are you using like a single person account or the Google Apps integrated account? I think the opinions of media.
I've tested it with single user. I know somebody who has tested it with apps. My understanding is that there are different issues with apps about how storage space is allocated and such. And Oleg says he was having problems with his apps account earlier, but that may be cleared up soon.
I was saying that I was using the. I want to try my apps right now and see if it works.
I think the opinions that media support isn't important are amusing. I'm not sure what you mean there. Thank you, Alan Furstenberg. The Russian hates Dropbox. But folders.
Yes, first of all, it's not Russian, number one. And number two, nobody said anything negative about Dropbox. I use Dropbox, I like Dropbox. I'm just saying this is more compelling because it has all the same functionality and more. That's what the Russian says, who is not Russian, by the way.
I'm not the Russian.
What is?
Why they keep calling me Russian? Pisses me off.
Yeah, if it's not right, why are you there? No, sorry to say it in that tone. Is it somewhere from?
By folder support, I mean like Mesh does, where you can pick any folder in your computer residing anywhere and sync it, unlike Dropbox, where everything resides in Dropbox's folder.
Okay, that's a valid point. You can't do that with Google Drive either.
I don't have lots of data, but I'm an ardent Google fan. I would use this to keep my small business file folders safer. Again, this is an alternative to Carbonite in addition to Dropbox, which is one of the reasons why they've got so many different tiers. For files.
Well, just so people are very clear, okay? You can definitely set it up in such a way where some of your files will get backed up automatically if you want to look at it this way, because if you put them in any of these services, in Dropbox, if you put them in Google Drive, they will get stored so you can have access to them on other computers. That's true. But, I mean, you can have access to it and, modified versions and all that stuff. I do it all the time in Dropbox. The only problem is, like I said, it's how big the files are and how long it's going to take to transfer all the information, make these updates happen, and depending on how huge your files are, if you got big files, being created all the time, it'll take a while. So don't count on, creating a file that's 2 gigabytes in size and expecting it on the next machine to be available within 5 seconds. Not going to happen.
And also remember, the pricing is today's pricing, not next year's pricing, because Google has a history of these prices going down over time.
Right, right.
You'll get, or they'll keep the pricing tier the same, but then they'll up how much storage you get. And I think it's really interesting that you get more Gmail storage with your first tier up. Once you pay anything for any of the tiers here, your Gmail storage goes up to 25.
Unless you're an apps user.
That's a whole thing. Why don't we go to our darling Ricardo in Brazil? You,
yes.
What do you think so far? What you're hearing, is this something you'd use? Are you excited about this, or is this?
No. I mean, it's pretty interesting, the Google Drive, but here in Brazil it's not available yet. So I'm just trying to understand what the purpose of Google with this. I mean, of course, it's a good to have docs in cloud computing, but here we have 5 GB free 5, and I mean, here in Brazil it's not so useful because people don't usually use this kind of stuff like SkyDrive and now Google Drive.
Okay. Well, how many of Google? I'm going to throw it to Alan. Alan, you're looking at the YouTube comments as well, correct?
Mostly, yeah.
Can you start at the top in just a moment? But let me go back real quick to Darlin. I'm curious how much of the Google portfolio that you hear about on here is accessible in Brazil. I know, like in Germany, they can't watch this live broadcast because of the inmates, the residents of Germany are unable to access that because of the laws or whatever. Tell me what do you think, or what things can and can't you use?
Actually, here we have docs, maps, now the Google Plus, but we don't have like the Google Wallet. We don't have the Drive yet, and a lot of other apps of Google. So it's not so famous to have these.
Are most of your friends on Facebook or Orkut or both?
Oh, they are all in Facebook.
So Orkut's taking a hit.
What?
Orkut. Orkut is I mean, you're in Brazil, which is their last stand, right? So they're taking a hit in Brazil because of Facebook.
Yes.
Leading question, Dan. Leading question.
Hey, that's my job.
Leading question.
Well, everybody in the audience, please disregard the last comment.
Okay, let's get Scott and Anthony.
I've got a question
next, but first, Alan.
Go on, go with Scott.
We've got to stay on top of the viewers' comments and questions, or it's rude and we'll lose them, because they're as much a part of the show as the folks in here. Alan, go ahead.
From YouTube, our eternal pal George Cozy says, "No matter when I log in, you people are hanging out. Pretty good for a ghost town." We had just 1689 say, "I'd love to share across users or allow public input and output on certain files." It's not clear that you can really do that yet, and at least I haven't figured out how. One of the things that I think you may be able to do is create a folder that is publicly shared, and then incorporate that on one of incorporate that on something that is on your drive, and you'll be able to then see it. So that might be a way to do this. S41NNON asked, "Can you share a folder with anyone within a specific IP range or country?"
That's a good question.
And Oleg might be able to answer this better than I can, because this sounds like it's something that's similar to how it would be in Docs. But my guess is no, that you would still be required to share it with specific accounts and people. Oleg, do you have any a better
I don't know. I can't answer it from my own knowledge. I don't know. But if you have, I know that you can share it. Anybody I've ever shared my stuff with from Google Docs, no matter where they're at, and some people were outside of the country, had no problems getting to the stuff.
Yeah.
So what's the disclaimers on copyright there then? Is there any copyright issues or TOCs in there already?
Well, I'm sure whatever it is, it's like, everybody else would be in the same boat on that.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But one of the things I also wanted to bring up.
Let me just finish up with the comments, and then we need to go to Mike. Orkut is over here in Brazil, is what Robert OTC1 says. Google Play Music is not available in Brazil either. Okay. When I was a regular Facebook and Twitter user, I used Dropbox's enabled embedding of audio constantly and sometimes video. We all dismiss this, but it's important for some. I don't think we're dismissing this, Inspector. I think what we're saying is Google Drive has this already. So I'm not sure why you think we're dismissing it. I think one of the things about Google Drive, and this was something that was available in Google Docs for ages, is that you can get a public HTML for a document that is saved up there. And Oleg, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're absolutely right on this. You're absolutely right.
So once you have that public URL, you can embed that anywhere. So this becomes a great way to do sharing. One of the things I would even point out is that I think someone mentioned that in the Chrome App Store, one of the apps that's now available for Google Drive is a way to create websites through Google Drive. So here's a way now you can create your whole website locally, save it on your local Google Drive, and suddenly it's going to be appearing out there in public for people to access. I think that could be a pretty compelling and a new way of using this sort of thing.
But you could already do it using Google Sites with your Apps account now.
Right. What I think I'm saying is that here's a way that Google Sites will now be. Can Google Sites sync directly off your local drive? That's what I'm saying. Is you can develop it. You can develop it locally, yes. Copy it locally, and it'll go sync up to that. I mean, a lot of professional web developers are used to that sort of thing.
Right. Exactly.
But here here's Google trying to make it simple and easy. So Mike, you had a question. What was it?
Yeah, my question is a couple of years ago we had Google Desktop, which is an application you downloaded and it enabled you to search your own hard drive without the internet of all the files of what we've just described. I tried to download it recently, it said it's finished, it's ended, and I was quite upset by that. So now, going on to when I said about what is sexy about this product, and certainly the mobile phone question, I'm assuming, and perhaps people can help me with this, is that now Desktop is gone, you get all of your files, you put them on Google Drive, and then it creates an image just like Google Search.
No,
it doesn't work like that.
No, let's not go there, no. Remember, they give you 5 gigabytes.
So no, I'm not talking about the size of the files. No, I'm talking about once all of the files are uploaded into the cloud, which is Google Drive, then an image is created to actually search that very rapidly, and does that become the new version of Google Desktop is what I'm saying. In other words, to search your own files.
Except your disk is too big. Your disk is probably 500 gigabytes. You're getting 5. So, yes, you're right about it searching the Google Drive part, but you're not going to put your whole 500 gigabytes into Google Drive, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So okay. So my next question is then: does anybody know anything about, say, Google Desktop, which was searching your own local disk? Right. And I thought it was really cool, and now Google have stopped it. And so that's my
actually, it was searching both. It was searching local, and you could do both.
Yeah, correct. So is there a replacement? Because going to cloud computing and all the rest of it, with the Chromebook, open it up, there is nothing. It's all somewhere else. Right. My bit with the attraction is when I think Alan or Oleg or both said is that when you can start searching your files, so let's assume your mobile phone was very tiny, but when you could actually search your 60 billion terabytes somewhere else, it was the search that was returning. Say, yes, I have got what you're looking for. You can download it if you want to. That's what I'm saying from the handheld device. Of making an image of if image is the right word.
Yeah, it's not so much the image because you're searching. A lot of times you're searching for content within files, not just for file names.
Gotcha.
So you got 2 different things you're searching for. That's what you're talking about. And
yeah, it's just searching and I mean, I do it all the time. Lose stuff,
When Microsoft was going to come out with Vista, they were going to come out with the component of the operating system that would do. I don't remember what they were going to call it, F drive. No, F disk. I think we were going to go or something like that. But basically, it was a way to have a different way of having everything indexed on the drive, so it's instantly available. And then right before they came out with it, they said that they were running out of. Basically, they had to scrap it because the thing wasn't working the way they wanted to, or they couldn't make it work properly, and so they had to release Vista, which was a big hit, of course. And it wound up being taken. It wasn't part of it, and then it never became part of it afterwards. So search still sucks on Windows. But
okay, sorry, I want to keep us going. Welcome Anthony Klauser, one of our regulars, to the Hangout. Welcome Lord Parker back. And I want to go to Scott. Scott, do you have any comments or questions on Google Drive?
Yeah, Alan, I do addresses for your business, where versus on the Drive, you have to use your Gmail account or your Google account. So
yes.
Explain how we can, in enterprises such as a nonprofit or a business, can use and share through their email addresses and rather than having to use their personal ones, which, you know, they don't want all this information on their personal addresses. Is there a way to do this? How do we go about doing it?
Yes, this is what Google calls Google Apps. And they have Google Apps for nonprofits. This gives you, basically it lets you run your email for your nonprofit through a Gmail-like interface. It's almost, but not quite Gmail. It gives you access to things like Google Docs and Google Calendar. It's basically a lot of the what we would used to call Office Productivity Suite in the cloud. And it's hosted on Google. And now, in addition to all of that, you're now going to be able to get Google Drive as part of that productivity suite. The biggest problem I've seen so far with Google Drive and what you were trying to do is it seems that only one account can be attached to the Google Drive on your machine at a time. So you can't, for example, have your personal Google Drive and your nonprofit Google Drive as separate folders on your machine. I've already seen some discussion with a Google engineer regarding this, and there have been hints that, hey, it's supposed to work, so maybe it will, but maybe it won't. Since the Google engineer was speaking in a non-official capacity at the time. But
theoretically, you could do it using virtual machine. I mean, if you wanted to run a virtual machine, you could,
yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, oh, yes, you could use it using a virtual machine.
Absolutely.
And certainly you can log out and log back in, but it's not entirely clear to me yet exactly what happens to the local files when you do log out and log back in.
Right.
So that's one of the questions that Google is going to need to answer more completely in the near future, because already I'm seeing a lot of people asking about that. And I would point out this is a problem that other things like Dropbox also have. But Dropbox didn't start out with a user base that had multiple accounts already, while Google is starting out with that kind of a profile. So absolutely, I encourage not-for-profits to take a look at Google Apps for nonprofits. It's a good service, and with Google Drive, it's made even better.
And also I wanted to add, before we go to Anthony here, that one thing people need to realize is when you get a Google Apps account, which is free, and nonprofits, like Alan pointed out, they have.
I would caution that, Oleg. There are certainly commercial apps accounts. Google Apps for Business is a commercial product, and it offers a lot more than even the basic Google Apps does.
Right, but that's fine.
But there is a free version.
That they have a thing called Google Marketplace for apps, and they have literally hundreds of applications. Many of them are free, and some of them are you pay for, from other manufacturers, third-party vendors, basically integrating with Google Apps, using Calendar and using Gmail, using different services like that. You can get CRM software, you can get project management, you can get all kinds of really useful applications that work together with Google Apps. And so I think if everybody, like the nonprofits, are looking into it, I mean, these are the kind of things that make Google stand out so much from everybody else. It's more than compelling. And now adding this Google Drive into the mix makes it that much more compelling, because you can still utilize all these services, but you'll now be able to store the information on the Google Drive.
Thanks, guys. That definitely helps me out. The big thing is I'm definitely I've already done the Google Drive personally, so I'm gonna see whether we can work with a nonprofit and a personal and see how it works out today, and come back with maybe some answers for that.
Personally, I still don't have Google Drive. It's amazing. Alan has Google Drive, and he keeps knocking on Google on different things, and I don't have it, and I'm the biggest supporter.
That's because they respect my opinion even when it doesn't agree with theirs.
Apparently.
I think the funniest thing is that Oleg is a big fan and Alan is a skeptic, and all the people in the comments are picking on the angry Russian guy.
That's because
people don't like Russians in general, which I agree with them.
I get my share of criticism. I get plenty. Anyway, Anthony, welcome. What are your thoughts on Google Drive so far?
I kind of joined this hangout obviously just a little bit ago, and I'm like, wait, Google Drive came out? That's my views on Google Drive right now.
In fact, the blog announcement where they announced this essentially said, yes, really, Google Drive is really announced. We're not kidding you. So
I still don't have it, so I still don't believe it. But yeah,
actually,
so I just went to the website and notify me.
The good news is that before, when you went to Google drive.google.com, it came up with a 404 error. It wasn't anything, compelling to look at, just a little 404 error. Meaning you can't find anything. Now at least you get some content, so I'm sure it's coming.
Wait, but you're saying Alan does have it, though, right?
Yes, I do.
That's what Alan said. I still haven't seen the screen to prove it, but that's what he says.
Yes, I do.
Well, the thing is, like, I signed up for Google Drive. I can tell you right now, there's probably a 10% chance that I'll use it, because I don't use any of these, cloud storage things. As much as they're compelling, like, all my stuff is on Google Documents, right? And so that's all my documents are already in the cloud on Google.
Google Documents are now stored on a Google Drive.
So you're gonna
right, which, really doesn't change anything in the grand scheme of things. I'd still be able to access it from the Google Documents interface. So
the Google Documents interface has been changed to be your Google Drive interface.
But also keep in mind that before you could not buy additional storage for
Google Doc, yeah.
For Google Docs, you had some limits in there that you could not increase. Now you'd be able to actually buy more stuff. So it does change it in terms of, yes, it looks the same, it works similarly, but at the same time you're going to have more capabilities.
I think one of the most interesting things that I've seen so far with Google Drive is the fact that locally your Google Docs documents are there, or at least there's an icon representing them. And if you click on them to open them, they open in the browser, so you can edit them. It again starts, making transparent this line between what's on the desktop and what's in the cloud and how you work on the two. I think that's actually one of the more interesting and powerful features here.
Now, if I know that Google Documents has offline support, right?
Yes, and there is a checkbox to allow you to get offline support for your Google Docs documents through Google Drive.
So if I'm on an airplane taking off and my computer has to be in airplane mode, obviously, because the plane's taking off, I can still access my Google documents through the Google Drive, even though I have no internet connection, right? Or would I have to go through the documents interface?
No, you always have to have internet connection to be able to access files there, because that's how you need to have the connection to get things synchronized. So as I'm sure you'll be able to edit a brand new document on a plane if you don't have internet, and then when you get down and connect to the internet, it'll sync it so you'll have it everywhere else. And also you'll be able to take an existing document and say I want to use it offline, and then on that particular device, it'll make it available for you so you can edit it. So I'm sure they're going to do both of those things. But in terms of real time, to work with collaborating with some other people at the same time while they're in the plane and they're on the ground and there's no internet, no, it's not going to do that.
Okay, let me go to some comments and questions from the as Dan asked me to do. I'm in the middle of a discussion with Inspector there, and perhaps somebody else can help clear this up as well. He keeps asserting that files that are available through Google Drive cannot be embedded, and he's very specific about embedding them elsewhere. And he says, they can't be embedded because they haven't made it possible. Maybe I'm missing something, but does anyone here understand why that might be a problem? My understanding is if a file, such as a video, is available through Google Drive, you've got the URL, you should be able to embed this through any other player that can handle it. Am I missing something?
Depending on how it's shared. If the file is private, Or on
No,
the
no, no.
shared
Let's assume it's public. It's public. The URL
It's public.
is public.
You should be able to do it. Yeah, I agree with you. You should be able to do it. But for this argument, though, for this other person, maybe you won't be able to do it. You shouldn't be able to do it if it's some sort of private or only with certain people. You wouldn't want that to be available to other people or embedded in the website when you're not sharing it with the public.
No, of course not. And in this case, we're only talking about publicly shareable stuff, which you can do. So I'm still confused. I'm still trying to have this discussion with him, hopefully better understand it. John Rich 827 says, currently I have to move my files from documents into the Drive folder in order to see them online. One too many steps. Okay, he's talking about moving it from your documents folder on your local computer into the Drive folder. And yes, this is an issue, but it's specifically done that way. This basically says you've got files on your local machine. If you don't want them to be shared, don't put them in this shared folder. This is a special shared folder, and it's done this way intentionally, I think. It's modeled after something you see also in both OS X and Windows have the same sort of concept of a shared folder. So I understand his concern, I understand what he's saying, but I think this was a deliberate move.
Right.
Hi all, I'm wondering why Google Drive kicked out Linux compatibility on their system. I think it's just a matter of wanting to get things out quickly, and they know that the Linux community is going to step up and develop the Linux compatible drive. Like I said, if it hasn't already been done by now, it will be done in a matter of hours.
Yeah.
And since an Apple guy, for officially, it says that they're going to be coming out with iOS and OS 10 versions.
We have a question for Anthony. They want to know where you're from and are you Canadian?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
What?
Is it nothing for me, Alan? I mean, come on.
That's the first time I've been told I sound like I'm Canadian.
Say A one time. A?
I don't want to, no.
He's really outgoing.
Since Anthony isn't responding, let me ask a question for him to this person. Is this a boy asking or a girl asking?
Oh, that could be interesting.
I don't know if DVM2, maybe you should let us know, and we'll see. We'll see exactly where this goes. Because we're getting quite the reputation of being matchmakers on this show. So let's see what we have. We have more discussion about embedding things. Let's see where that's going. We have, again, the question, can you edit your Google Docs offline? There is a Google Doc offline editor, I believe it's available. Anthony or Oleg may correct me on this.
It is.
But it is available, so although you need to be able to when you sync it, you need to specify that you want a synced version of it, not just a linked version of it. So it's possible, but you need to make sure you've taken the correct steps to do so. And I'm reloading to check for more messages. He just says you sound like a Canuck. That's all.
This is his microphone.
I've been told that I sound German. That's about it. From South Carolina. I mean, born in Connecticut.
Okay, we have an interesting question that gets back to a topic that I wanted to bring up before. Is it possible to sync the save file of Google Play Store apps? That is actually a really interesting and convoluted idea, that if you sync your Google Play stuff to your local Google Drive, it will then sync your local Google Drive up to the cloud-based Google Drive, so you'll have two copies of the same thing on Google's cloud. What a mess. I mean, the fact that this isn't integrated with Google Play right now. In fact, what I found really interesting is that the apps for Google Drive aren't located on Google Play Store. They're located in Google Chrome Store. So here we have two sides of Google competing with each other. Anyone want to comment on that? Because I think it's ridiculous. And everyone agrees with me. Wonderful.
What's ridiculous? I didn't listen. Sorry, Alan, I wasn't listening.
Can we see
of course, you're never
cat?
listening to it. What, Dan?
Can we see Anthony's cat? Can we have a cat off between Anthony? Man, it looks really pissed off. It looks like more like a bat, like a giant bat than a cat.
You can't disagree with Alan. I mean, that's what it is.
Alan, are your cats there?
My cats are not here, thankfully.
Do you have cats in Brazil? Are you allowed to have cats, darling?
No.
No cats?
No.
Cats are banned from Brazil, I think, right? I'm picking up. Poor Darla doesn't know how we pick on people. What are your thoughts, Gary?
Some more comments. Okay.
Real quick, Alan, or do you have more comments?
No, go ahead, Dan.
Gary, tell me this whole Google Drive thing. You may have seen it in your stream mentioned. Do you have any thoughts on Google Drive and what we've talked about as a store, as a Dropbox competitor? We've talked about it as a Carbonite competitor for secure, like safety, storage, backup stuff. What are your thoughts so far? Is this flash in the pan, or is this something awesome? What do you think, or somewhere in between? Gary, if we could
turn on
unmute your mic or something.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Since I use a lot of Google platform things, I'll probably try Google Drive. I don't like Microsoft's offering, and I'm willing to try it. I can't get it. I went to the website and it says it's not available for me, so I had to sign up for it.
Yeah, it's available for me too.
I don't have it either. Don't feel too bad.
I don't think it's been rolled out to everybody.
No, it hasn't.
That's unusual that they didn't note that, because in the announcement it said just click here, and they didn't say we're slow. Normally with the new interface they said we're rolling it out, but they didn't say that this time. That's interesting.
Yeah, I clicked that thing, join, and it gave me that message that it's not available to ask for an invite, and I sent the thing in. But I heard from a couple of people that they can't do it. They get in that same page.
Yeah, you get notified, and then you send an email. Just make sure everybody who wants to use it, put in your notification, click on notify, the option they give you, and put in your email address, so they will notify when you actually do get it.
Wow. Now, I think it's interesting because I have one of the CR48s, one of the beta Chromebooks,
yeah.
And no, I didn't get it. I'm kind of, obviously there's not much storage on a Chromebook, so
I haven't tried it on my Chromebook yet. I have a Samsung Chromebook.
Yeah, I wonder if
I just got an interesting thing that'll be for folks with HOA, Hangouts on Air. I talked to somebody. I invited them because I can't see it on the list, so I assumed it wasn't there. But then Mike, who's since had to leave, said that he saw it, and it was like at the front of the list. Sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't see it. When we do a live Hangout, I know it's listed somewhere because we've got like 40 people watching, and we are looking at all the comments from you guys, and we're incorporating them in the show. We're trying to read all the comments unless they're really bad,
Well, I wouldn't say really bad, but some of them aren't necessarily appropriate for being on air.
Exactly, and also any comments about Oleg, please keep them coming, and we'll make sure we include those in the program. But anyway, he said once I invited him, he couldn't see it, so that's really interesting. So they're gonna work on that. There's some bug or something, but that's a minor thing. But that's just interesting because I thought sometimes it wasn't listed, and I was like, how are we getting all these people? But apparently, if you're in the Hangout, it by default doesn't show.
It's showing for me.
Whoa. That's interesting.
Anyway, we have a question from YouTube again. Question: can you pause a file upload? Because I have very limited upload speed, and when I'm working or gaming, I don't want some random upload syncing happening. That's a really good question, and I don't know an answer yet. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find it. Maybe.
You can pause the Google Music uploads, can't you?
I don't know that either, but I believe you can. I don't see Google. I'm looking right now at the control panel, at least on OS X, and there is nothing that says pause syncing, but since I'm not syncing a file right now, it may not offer that option to me. That is a really good question, and I don't know the answer right now. And neither does anyone else, I take it.
No.
What was the question?
If you can pause syncing between your local Google Drive and the cloud Google Drive.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, like on Androids, you can actually indicate which things you want to sync. You can turn it on, turn it off. So I would imagine there would be a way to do it.
One would think so, but I don't see anything.
On Dropbox,
so.
I don't see that kind of option. Interesting thing on this cubby thing I was mentioning earlier from LogMeIn, they allow you to transfer files of any size if you do turn off syncing with the cloud. So they're basically saying if you want to sync through the cloud, you have a limit of how much you can actually send. But if you're doing peer-to-peer type process, synchronization, meaning you want to send the file to somebody else by just sharing without using the cloud in the between, then they let you send any file size you want. So that's kind of an interesting twist on doing the share. I don't know how Google Drive is going to be, if it's going to have the same capability or not. We'll have to wait and see.
We're still having this discussion with Inspector about whether files from Google Drive can be embedded in something like Facebook. And I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out the details, but he seems to indicate that it can be done from Dropbox, can't be done from Google Drive. I'm going to have to try this out some more myself another time. Right now, let me welcome Sheila to our discussion, another one of our regulars. Hi, Sheila. So you can turn your mic back on. That's fine.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I was. Hello.
Hi, have you taken a look at Google Drive yet, and what do you think?
I just barely installed it, and yeah. I think I'm going to like it because it pulled up, I didn't know where it found it, but it pulled up a spreadsheet for me to log my daily eating habits, my exercise habits. So that will make it nice.
Well, it's another health application. I'll have to put that up on Google Drive.
What's that?
I say it's another health app.
Well, you want me to share my document with
Yeah, you can do that. I can't get into Google Drive right now.
I can't get into it either.
Okay, someone said regarding our question earlier about pausing the sync, if you install the Google Drive program, click the icon and there is a pause there. That's from Chuck27111. I've installed the application again on my Mac, and I don't see a pause button. But
I do.
Are you on Windows or Mac?
I'm on Windows, and it's the second option down. It says sync complete, and then there's a pause option.
Okay, so there you have it. This is something apparently that Windows has that they didn't put on the Mac version.
No,
there it is. I do see it now. Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay, so there is a pause button. Okay, so I hope that answers the question that was asked earlier. I already forgot from who. We've had a couple of questions regarding peer-to-peer. So we've got a question from Papa Pierce. Is peer-to-peer syncing available on mobile phones? I just heard it mentioned on the Hangout, and I would love that feature on my Galaxy Nexus. Yes, well, if I understand your question correctly, yes, there is an Android client. Being able to, and from that I assume if you put anything into the Google Drive client in Android, it will sync to everything else that you're sharing that Drive folder with. So that means other mobile phones, that means your desktop, and that of course means the cloud portion of the drive. So yeah, it's not truly peer-to-peer, since it all gets synced through the central cloud. But you will be able, anything that's installed on any file that you have put on any of these devices, that file will appear on all of the devices, and that's a major feature of this.
Interesting, I just looked at my Google Play, and it says that Google Drive has already been installed on my devices, even though I haven't done it. They must have done it automatically.
I just saw that too, actually.
And that's from Google Play.
Yeah, from Google Play. I'm looking at the web version, but yet when I go to drive.google.com, I don't see it.
Sounds like somebody's confused. And
Well,
I don't think it's you.
Confusion. There's no confusion.
I'm looking at,
like I said,
I'm looking at my phone right now, and it's on my phone, and I just updated it because apparently it needed updating. Which isn't completely shocking because obviously Google can push apps to phones. It's kind of it's kind of interesting that they would push an app to your phone that wasn't already on there and that wasn't requested, but...
Okay, some more questions from YouTube. Just1689 says, looking forward to the API. Look forward no further. It's already been published. It's out there. You can use it now. I already forgot what... it will be similar to Wuala or Ubuntu One? I'm not familiar with either of those. Is anyone here familiar with it?
No.
It's just another Dropbox box.net clone.
So it does sound like it's similar.
I think it will be similar as Ubuntu One. I mean, we have here the same thing. Google Drive and Ubuntu One, SkyDrive, they're all the same, no?
It sounds like they're all very similar, yes. Papa Pierce again asks us, so on mobile, there's no such thing as unlimited transfer of file size. I think that's only limited by your data plan, and that would be a data plan issue. But I don't think the client would necessarily limit that. Maybe if they're smart, they do limit it, and they give you the option to only do syncing when you're on Wi-Fi and not on a data plan. But I don't see why there would be a file size limit otherwise. I mean, I'm sure you can't get all 16 terabytes down onto your phone, but other than that.
So the Google, going back to saying that the Google Drive has been pushed to Android phones, I figured out what was going on. Google Docs, which was already on my phone, has become Google Drive.
Yeah, did you just post that to the YouTube forum? Because someone else there just said that.
No,
as well.
I didn't.
That's not you? Okay.
No.
Hey, do you have to, is there an app on your Android phone? Like, okay, for me, I got the announcement. I saw in my stream literally every other freaking post was, introducing Google Drive. So I'm like, okay, cool. I guess I'll check this out. And so I went there to drive.google.com/start, and I watched the video, which was vague at best, and then I clicked to download the app onto my computer, my Windows computer, and I saw it created a virtual drive similar to Dropbox. Like it's, you have your C drive, your D drive, and Google Drive, and then I know it syncs with Android and stuff. So on my phone, I have an Android phone, or for folks who have an iPhone, do we have to download an app, or is this just going to appear, or how does that work, Oleg or Alan or whoever?
Well, you have to download the app, but if, like I said, if you already had Google Documents, the Google Documents app on your Android phone, then Google Documents has become the Google Drive app. So either you had Google Documents already, and now that's the Google Drive app, or then, you would have to
Anthony, slow down on that. That's not exactly what it is. That's not what it is. Because I got Docs. Can everybody see that? So I have my Samsung S2 Android phone, and I don't know if you can see it now. But anyway, I have Docs. I still have Docs, and when I open it up, it still looks like Docs. I don't see anything different. But also looking at Drive, I don't know what they call it. Do they call it just Drive or Google Drive? Let me see if I can find it.
Called Google Drive.
There's my Dropbox. No, I don't have anything called Google Drive on this. I don't understand. It says that they installed it. Where did they install it? Because I don't have it. Weird.
You might have to update it.
No, but like I said, I'm looking at my... here's my screen from the Google Play Store. As you can see on the top, it clearly shows Google Drive, Android apps, and it says installed on the bottom. You see that? So look, now I'm going to take my tablet, see if the tablet has it.
Oh, if you look at my phone, I don't know how well this is going to pick up on
Are you looking at the tablet, Anthony, or are you looking at the...
I'm looking at my phone. But if you look here, that's... Damn it. That's the Google Document Drive. And then you open it, and it goes right into Documents.
So if I open my Docs on my tablet...
You know what? That's not even available for your iPhone.
No, it's not right. It's coming, though, Sheila. They said it's coming.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, that's what they said. Coming soon. You know, the usual deal. iPhone is always at the bottom of the list, which is how it should be.
So it'll just switch over, I guess. Are Google Docs going to switch over, or is it going to?
Well, I'm sure it will use it, like Alan said, for storage. But that doesn't mean. I mean, there's no. What do you mean by switch over? It's just going to use storage, Google Drive for storage for this. But
so it's not the same as like the Android market turning into Google Play or whatever. It's different.
It just stores information there on the drive, basically, what we're saying.
Okay.
But I don't see. You still have the apps being the apps themselves. But I don't see Google Drive on this thing. I just don't see it.
Let me go to some comments for our folks watching on YouTube. If you don't have it available to you, then it is just Google Docs. On mine, my Google Docs was replaced by Google Drive. I can no longer find Docs on my phone or the Market on a Google Plus or a Nexus phone. So I guess it according to Papa Pierce, it will actually be a replacement similar to the change from the branding of Google Market or Android Market to Google or Play.
Which is what I'm saying.
Yeah, Google Market on my Android and search for Google Docs. Google Drive is what comes up, so it's a total replacement. I don't have it either.
Okay,
the rollout hasn't reached us yet. Go ahead, Oleg, real quick.
I was just going to say that now I looked, I clicked on the on my Play deal where it says installed because I couldn't find it on my devices, and I pulled it up, and then there was an option to install, which was weird because typically it says installed if you already have installed. So properly it said install. I clicked on install. It said it'll be shortly downloaded, and now I saw that it downloaded Google Drive onto my tablet and probably on my phone too. So you shouldn't look at when it says installed. You should go ahead and install it anyway. It'll let you install apparently.
Okay, more YouTube comments. All the men are geeks or old. And then one person said,
I resent that.
Someone said, I resemble that. They said it's a tech vlog. Being a geek is a given. I can't access just Google Docs on the web, only Drive. Google Doc is updated to Google Drive, and it says to wait for a reminder via email after the update is done. They are the same thing in regards to your phone. If you don't have it available, then it's Docs. Okay, that's that one. I don't have it either. The rollout hasn't reached us yet. Will the files be encrypted on the devices before being put out to the cloud? What about security? Good question. Alan Furstenberg, who just left us, unfortunately, there is no mystery. Dropbox supports embedding and playing media files, and G Drive doesn't. I just spent 30 minutes comparing the two. Remember, this is the rollout day, whereas Dropbox obviously is a bit older. And then hopefully, if it doesn't currently exist on G Drive's client, they will just add proper peer-to-peer that can bypass the cloud and save bandwidth. All the other major players have this. And then I think the paid storage is a little light considering this is a drive to replace a physical mounted drive. Yes and no. For some people, yes. For others, no. And again, as I said earlier, and we all agree that this is the rollout day pricing. And Google has a history of having, price points at a certain level when they roll something out. Then they evaluate the business model and usage and the revenue stream, and then adjustments are made as appropriate. But in general, they try to make things as inexpensive as possible to get volume, like Walmart or Costco would do. I think Macs are dinosaurs. Is this similar to Ubuntu One or Wuala? And then looking forward to the API. The API is here. I think we already addressed that. Is peer-to-peer syncing available on mobile phones? I just heard it mentioned in the Hangout. I would love that feature on my Galaxy Nexus. Yes, it's one thing, just like your email account. The unlimited peer-to-peer is one of the things I use Mesh for still. Okay, I think I'm caught up for now, but keep the comments and questions rolling in. We're trying to catch them all before they disappear. But who wants to go next? Lord Parker, you want to weigh in, or who hasn't talked for a while? Oh, we have Brent in here finally. You have an application. You have a nonprofit, right? And you use Google Docs. Was it you said?
Yes, we have a rollout of Google Docs. We have about 5 to 550 users that we have installed on our Google Docs.
So what do you think about this?
We extensively use spreadsheets and docs, and also uploaded PDFs into our Google Doc repository. So I think this is going to make it much, much easier for my users to kind of understand uploading those files and sharing them out. So unfortunately, I don't have it on my account yet to take a look at it and see what it looks like, but I'm sitting here on pins and needles waiting for it.
Now, are you the IT guy there, or what's your role in the nonprofit?
Yeah, I'm the director of IT here.
Okay, so you're like, this is a new thing. Obviously you're going to spend all night playing with it because you're going to get a million questions tomorrow about it.
That's correct.
Your 500 users, are they in all one location or spread out?
No, we have volunteers across the country, so we're from coast to coast.
Oh, this is right up your alley.
Yeah.
Brad, are you using Google Apps for the standard edition, or are you using the nonprofit, or for business?
We're using the educational version.
Educational version.
Yeah.
I named everything but that one.
Okay. I think it's the same as the business version, except as a nonprofit, it doesn't cost us anything.
Right. And it's working well in terms of having so many users and stuff?
It works fantastic. The only problem that we had in the beginning is trying to get people to move on to the platform.
Yeah.
Everybody was kind of, this is something new, I'm not sure I want to use it, and eventually, as I was able to move them over, everybody loves it. They can access it from their Android phone, their iPad, their iPhone, on their desktop. If they're using Thunderbird or Outlook, it's just a wonderful platform.
Yeah, it is. I totally agree. Yep. That's great.
Okay, so let me go back to some comments here. I want to live in the cloud. Oleg.
What?
Yeah, installed doesn't mean up to date on the Play Store anymore, so it's a bit misleading since they changed that function. Why are they picking on you, Oleg? You're such a sweetheart.
It's okay. No, he's just making a comment that was, it says installed, so to me installed means installed. But,
I don't know why you would think that. On the Android app, if you were to open the Drive app and hit the option button, you will see something saying Google Drive is here, and if you click that, it would do the all Drive thing.
I think it's a bug, because now I'm going back and trying to do, and now it doesn't let me install anymore because it's already installed. And like Anthony pointed out earlier, and Alan before him, it did replace the docs icon with Drive, so now it just says Drive, which is kind of weird because Drive doesn't tell you anything about the applications. The whole idea was to, I don't know why they call it that, but maybe they'll change that. It's what the person wrote is right about misleading. Yeah, I mean, it's called Drive, and so what it actually means is this is how you get to your Google apps, which doesn't make much sense. But
I don't think we've heard much lately from Scott, Lord Parker, and Darlin. Do you guys want to, any of y'all want to chime in on what you've heard so far? Any of these questions or any thoughts about this? Because this is kind of exciting. It was funny because it was just initially billed as a Dropbox competitor, and then now we're discovering it's so much more, and thus the big push. So, any thoughts? Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I mean, go on. My first, obviously, initial thought was, it's going to be another Dropbox. But having heard everything and having now read a lot about it, it does look a lot deeper than that. Because I mean, when I originally spoke to you, I said, I'm thinking about putting my videos on there and streaming through a telly, but I've actually been thinking about it a lot more, and at the minute I'm a big Apple person. I've got my iPads and I've got my iPhones and everything's on there, and I'm having to use numbers and pages, and it's a bit unwieldy trying to get it all into Word afterwards, whereby once they get the iPad and the iPhone app sorted out, I think that's going to make my workload a lot lighter, because I can put everything in Google Docs and then share that with the people that need it.
Or you can just use your Android devices right now and not worry about that.
Well, I would, Oleg, but Android device at the moment is here it is. It's my Google Nexus S, and it's not really working at the moment. So that's why I'm using my Apples at the minute. So the Nexus is in a drawer out the way. But yeah, I haven't really got any more Android phones. I basically switched all to Apple. Sorry to say that. So yeah, I'll wait for the apps to come out on the iPad and that.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will because they have done the same thing with Google Plus, and I'm sure they will do the same thing with this. And
Don't know, I'm a bit I don't know because the Apple have the cloud, as it were. So I wonder how they will feel about using having a Google Drive app on their App Store.
Apple does not have the apps like Google Apps. They don't have anything like that right now. And so with that being the case, for people who want to use that kind of capability, Apple just doesn't have a solution for them, so they have to use something like Google Apps. And Google, I think, are realizing that, so they're providing the software to the people who want to use it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Google being Google, which is definitely an Android company, they want to promote theirs first and foremost. So that's why you see the iOS apps are coming soon.
Oh yeah.
And the other ones being here right now, which makes sense. I mean, it's their product.
Makes perfect sense.
Yes.
I think it's a real good one for me because with the Drive coming out at this time, we just started up a nonprofit a year ago. This is great to be able to connect at an early age right into the Drive. Take this in there, use the nonprofit apps that I wasn't really aware of. And I think it's going to be a good integration for our nonprofit to be able to hook up this way. I'm looking really forward to it and glad I got on it right away to start learning about it.
Of course. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Anybody who's using, right now, who's using like Microsoft Office for Business and think that there's no other way to do it, you can hear from a number of people, including Brent here. He's got 500 user organization. It's not some tiny deal, where you have 5 users, it's okay, but if you have more than 5 users, it doesn't work. I mean, it's a phenomenal platform. I totally agree. And if you look at the marketplace and see everything that's available from their marketplace, how many apps they have, and all the functionality you can kind of bring together under one group, under one roof, and then you add all these things working together, there's nobody else out there who has anything even close to it. I live in a Microsoft territory here, and I tried, I went to some of their meetings about Office 365, and because that's basically their online version of, doing Office applications in the cloud. And in terms of actually using it, because I have given it a shot, it's no comparison to Google Apps. I mean, many people say, yeah, it's great, it's great. It's not that great. It's not free, by the way. And also it's missing on a lot of different things that I won't go into and bash Microsoft, but if you're looking at it, if you compare it face to face, Microsoft is not up to that level in terms of this cloud-based computing. And Google just keeps steamrolling ahead. I mean, they got tremendous amount of apps, they got the storage, they got the quality in terms of what these apps can do. They got the app script, which I don't know if many people know about that, but Google has created a language called Google App Script that allows you to control and utilize various applications in your own. It's like API that's relatively easy to use for various applications. So for example, let's say you had a list of people that you wanted to email, and this list is stored in your spreadsheet. You can actually use Google App Script as a glue to say, I'm going to grab these people from the spreadsheet, I'm going to do some processing on them, whatever you want it to be done, or filtering or whatever you want to do, and then actually mail it out all from your script. So you're using Gmail, you're controlling Gmail for App Script, you're controlling the Google spreadsheet from that, and of course you can control a bunch of other stuff as well. And so it makes a very compelling, for IT departments, very compelling environment to actually develop full-blown apps. I mean, right now I'm working on a new project for a real estate company, and there's so many things that I can do. It really saves on time to be able to use some of these capabilities so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Excuse me, a little earlier, Dan, you were talking about you were surprised that this Google Drive was not rolled out to everybody. Here's the screen that I'm getting when I go to sign up for it.
Yeah.
It says, we'll mail you at GM11MD, learn more. So it says it's not ready.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess I'm sure it'll be soon. It'll be similar to the new interface for Google Plus, which they just rolled out, about 12 days ago or something, and that it's going to be very fast because they didn't announce that it was in a rollout. They announced it was available. So I would be very surprised if it weren't a matter of hours, Gary, Just the glitches. I mean, the economies of scale. Okay, so looking from River Bruce, nice comparison. There's a nice comparison chart on Engadget. Too bad you can't post links here in the comments on the YouTube live stream. You can just put some spaces in there, and the folks watching know, to copy that and then adjust it and then paste it. It's one of the things. But remember, Google Plus commenting system is coming to YouTube soon, so this is a temporary problem. Okay, but what peace of mind can you have? This is from S4. Oh gosh.
S41NNON. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to plus it here. S4NNON. Okay, but what peace of mind can you have if you put sensitive data? There will be no proof that Google accesses this information. That is something I'm afraid of. It's a legitimate concern, but I mean, you can't live in a cave. Google does not have a history of blatantly doing bad things, and they've had their controversial moments, like with the Wi-Fi thing when they were doing the Google Map, the cars running around. But that was an accident. I still, we're still friends and fans of Google. None of us work for them, but I think their motives are pure. I mean, they screw up once in a while, or an employee. I mean, you're only as strong as your weakest employee, right? So I would say I'm not concerned about it. And the times that they do use your data, it's usually in a good way where it helps your search and makes it more relevant. But that's my opinion, and you guys can argue with me on that. And then Lord Parker mentioned this comment. Okay, but what? Wait, let me go down here because I'm sorry, these comments are flipping by so quick. How does anyone access your nonprofit docs without sending out the link to your docs? Do you post on a web page or what? Answer that in 1 sec for me. And then are they going to make a web interface to access your files and folders, something similar to Google Docs, or is it only going to be accessible via the app?
It's accessible via Google Docs. You go to your Google Docs and it's there.
Okay.
Well, just remember also, people who don't understand the concept of sharing, you do not send documents or give them to your people. You simply share it with them. Okay, so you don't actually send anything to anybody. You just simply go and click share, indicate the email addresses of people who you want to share it with, and also, in many cases, you indicate to what degree you want to share it. Maybe you want people to be able to see it, but not edit it. Or maybe you want people to be able to edit it and see it as well. So those are the things you do, and that's the extent of it. You don't actually send anything to anybody. You simply share it with people.
Okay, and then we have Bruce Turner, who's just joined us. Bruce is a good friend of Google Plus Week and a good friend of all of ours. He's in Lynchburg, Virginia, and I'm sure that, like all of us, he's seen post after post. Probably every other post in his stream is announcing Google Drive. What are your initial thoughts from 10,000 feet in the air as we, get our first look at this, Bruce?
Well, I'm looking forward to it very much so. I was River Bruce. I did post the link in the chat here in the Hangout so that you guys could see it. It's a nice comparison chart. It compares Google Drive with Microsoft SkyDrive, Dropbox, and Apple iCloud. Gives prices and stuff like that. I'm kind of late to the Hangout, but there's a section in the chart on talking points, and one of the talking points I thought was interesting is that there's an SDK available for Google Drive. Is there? Right. That's not the case with the other formats, is it?
Well, there's definitely APIs for Dropbox, and there's many apps people wrote to use Dropbox. Like, for example, one of the apps they tried that seemed to work pretty well at one time is you wanted to be able to email a document and then have the document automatically printed. So you could be somewhere on your phone, and you can actually print in your house by using Dropbox as the intermediary. And those kind of things. There's a lot of different things like that. So there's API for Dropbox. In terms of SkyDrive, I don't know, so I'm not going to say anything.
One of the other interesting points under the talking points is if you get a paid Google Drive account, and that would, you could get the minimum $249 a month for 25 gigabytes. You get an extra 25 gigabytes added to your Gmail storage.
Correct.
That could be important for some people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's still pretty cheap. I upgraded my Gmail for $5 for a year, and they gave me 20 gigs. But this way here, if you need to use both, I think you could still buy for $5, 20 gigabytes, get it done that way without using the Google Drive upgrade. But very compelling, very compelling.
I think that's a fantastic thing because all of us, deal with that kind of stuff, like worrying about our data storage and the integrity of backups and stuff. And if this is a way to store stuff and not have to worry, because Google, I mean, is a big company, and I think that's just fantastic that this will be one less thing we have to worry about.
Well, there's a couple of things. Google is a big company, it's true, but more importantly, I think people need to understand, especially for business use, is that they have not a perfect track record, but excellent track record. And if you get one of their Google Apps for Businesses accounts, you get it with 99.9% uptime guarantee. They guarantee you that your machines will be up 99.9% of the time. And if you look at the amount of money each business has to spend for maintenance and management of their servers and the storage and people coming in to take care of it and so on and so forth, it's amazing how much money you can save by moving into this Google Apps platform, and especially with this new Google Drive deal.
Yeah, I don't know if you...
Go ahead, Bruce.
On the maximum file size, too, on this comparison chart, the maximum file size for a single file on Google Drive is 10 gigabytes. It's 2 gigabytes on SkyDrive.
I thought somewhere in there I read in their promos that there's no limit.
I'm talking about the individual. Now, I'm just quoting from the Engadget site. The maximum file size. We're talking about one file.
Right.
A 10 gigabyte file. Now, whether this is accurate, I don't know. But on Dropbox, the maximum file size is 300 megabytes, and on the iCloud, it's 25 megabytes for free accounts, 250 megabytes for paying subscribers. So if somebody had a large video project file they were working on, of course, you certainly wouldn't want to have all your eggs in this one cloud basket. But for larger files, if this chart is accurate, that would be a plus.
Somewhere in there, I can't find it out, but somewhere I read that the size is no longer an issue. So I'm not sure if they have this limit. I mean, I'm sure the size of your Google Drive would be a limit, but I don't know if it's less than that. I'm trying to see if I can find it where I read that.
That size would only be relevant, I guess, for video, right?
Yes, in my mind, it would be.
Right.
And a rather large project at that.
Well, if you got like movies, not little Google Plus Week shows, those don't take that much room.
It could easily. No, we've had a couple multiple gigabytes.
Everybody should be watching it and downloading those.
Exactly.
They're small.
We're on the same page. It is considered the foremost authority in all things Google Plus.
Exactly.
So anyway, are you impressed now? I guess you're jealous because Darlin in Brazil doesn't have access to this yet, and I didn't see any mention.
I don't have it either, Dan. I don't have it.
Oh, guys, I don't have these Google Drives, so I'm just trying to understand what all it is. But I think here in Brazil it will not have a great impact, because we will have small businesses. I think the target here will be small businesses here, so isn't too useful. We have other kinds of like SkyDrive and these things. So here the Google Drive will be more useful to small businesses that know the Google Apps, not so. I think.
But I don't know why you're saying just small businesses. I mean, this Brent guy that was here, he said they have 500 users. I'm sure there are installations that are into thousands. It's not just for small businesses.
Okay, but here in Brazil, I think the people who will use the Google Drive will be small businesses.
Yeah, because it's cheap. But eventually it'll, migrate. Once people figure out that it's cheap, it's like when the computers came out initially, IBM PCs, nobody would touch the clones. If you go back, some 30 years or whatever, nobody would buy the clones even though they were 1/3 of the price. And, or at least half price basically, then they became 1/3. And they were just as good in many ways, but people wouldn't buy them because it's not, IBM. To me, the deal with Google Apps is very similar, whereby as time progresses and more small businesses and individuals use it and become religious about it because it works and it works well, then it'll migrate into bigger businesses as well. We already have cities, municipalities like, I think the city of Los Angeles, I believe, was one of the cities that actually switched. I don't know how many thousands of people they have, but quite a few, and they switched to use Google Apps. And I haven't heard of any kind of problems where a bunch of people switched and had massive problems, and then they went back to Microsoft or anything like that. So, I'm sure it's different from different companies, but I think it will migrate as more and more people find out about it. And I think that's why Google is trying to make it more compelling. They're trying to make it more and more where it's a basically non-brainer. I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world for your business to use something like that. And I use it myself religiously, and I also have a bunch of my clients that use it, and I don't have any problems recommending it at all. I think it's an excellent thing for just about any size business.
Quick question for Darlin. What kind of headset are you using? Because your audio is fantastic. What are you using there? It's real clear, crisp.
Mine?
Yes.
Yeah, what's your headset there?
Multi-laser headset. I mean...
What brand is it? Like the headset you have around your head with the microphone? What brand is that or model?
Okay, multi-laser. The brand.
Multi-laser is the brand. Is that a Brazilian brand or is that an international brand? Because it's really good.
Oh, sorry, I don't know if it's a Brazilian brand. I think it's an international one. Multi-laser, I think.
I know Bruce is going to be all over that because that. Don't you agree, Bruce? He sounds really crisp and clear, and it's actually superior to his video quality.
Yeah. Not only is the audio good, but I really like the low-profile look of that headset. It looks comfortable instead of having these, giant gaudy things that you see a lot of people have. So it's nice.
Yeah, but so cheap.
You mean like Anthony?
Now, let me ask you one other question about the headset. Is it USB, or does it plug in with analog jacks?
Plug in, no, not USB.
No.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's neat, because like sometimes we'll suggest something and it'll become all the rage. So, but I'm just listening to you, and I mean, you have a pleasant voice anyway, but it really comes through well.
Yeah, very clear.
Mm-hmm. And as you know, as all of us have discussed multiple times, audio is actually more important than video in a video. It's very important you have crisp, clean audio.
Yes.
But yeah, that was a little diversion there. But
it looks like it's a Brazilian brand.
It's a Brazilian.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It shows that they are. So it's a Brazilian. It looks like it's a Brazilian brand.
Man, those Brazilians are just taking over, aren't they? Watch out! Watch your back, guys. That's awesome. Yeah, that's very impressive sound. It sounds really crisp and clear and good, and so I just wanted to check that out. So it's Multi-Laser is the brand of the headset microphone that Darlin is using.
And
so I guess
is the Darlin said cheap. So it's not just good; it's also cheap.
Yeah, it's the most cheap that they have in the store.
Yeah, that's awesome when you can get something really affordable, but it still performs well. I mean, that's everyone's goal. So let's start from the right, and let's get our final thoughts from Oleg first, and then we'll go all the way down to Anthony on what we think. Any final thoughts on Google Drive, and then any interesting stories that may have piqued your interest today. Because this is kind of a combination. I guess I'm not doing a news hangout because the big news, of course, for most of our audience who's interested in Google and Google Plus and YouTube, they were all concerned about Google Drive. So Oleg, anything that's politics, news, business, whatever that piqued your interest today?
No, this was definitely the event of the day, at least the one I want to discuss. And, initially I did think, speaking of this, I did think that they were going to, everybody was saying it was going to be another, just a storage, 5 gigabytes, all of that. And I thought, Google needs to come out with something better than just what everybody else has. And I think they have. So that's my final thought.
The incumbent has an advantage, but so does the challenger. It's really interesting, because they can study what everyone's doing right and doing wrong.
Yeah,
and they can come out with a new version, and so it is exciting. And you're totally right. And I think you illustrated it best when you showed us how this isn't just a new Dropbox or an alternative to Dropbox.
Exactly.
This is a big deal that's going to evolve over time into something massive.
And I know, Alan right now cannot, get on my case for saying this, so I'm just saying I'm knocking on his case without him being here. But, I disagree. I'm sure, when he said they took him 3 years to develop it, there's a lot of things in this thing right now that I can already tell that this is not, this is way before Google Plus and everything else. And so they talked about it for a long time, and people actually used something, they saw references to it, this and that. It's not that it took Google that many years to develop something like this, I'm sure, and I think they did a great job with what I've seen so far. That's all I would say.
Awesome. Okay, Your Grace, the Lord Parker, any final thoughts on Google Drive or on anything interesting going on in the kingdom today?
Okay. Well, let's start with Google Drive first. I'm a low leg on this. This thing, I think, is in its infancy, and it's only going to grow and expand, and they're going to add new bolt-ons to it eventually. I think this is going to be a fantastic tool, certainly going to outstrip the competitors in a matter of years. So definitely one to watch, Google Drive, and I'm certainly going to be using it. In terms of what's happening in the UK, let's think now. It's been a long day and I've not seen much of the news, but I know the Levinson's inquiry into the phone hacking scandal is still going on over here. I believe we've had Mr. Murdoch and Murdoch Jr. actually at the Levinson inquiry giving evidence today. So that's still going on. The other big news we got, of course, pretty big news today, has been that we had a marathon in London, as you know, because we talked about it on Sunday, and there was a competitor, a female, that dropped dead just before the end, and she managed to raise something like about £5,000 for her charity before she died, and now it's over 500,000 that people have donated so far.
That's fantastic.
So so they're going to build a legacy. They're going to build a legacy in her name, basically, which is nice.
That's good.
That's fantastic. Good for them. And as always, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's cool.
We have a lot of aristocracy that hangs out with us, but it's good to have you. We're always getting the Windsors in here, like
I know.
You talk about how much.
Actually, the Queen is staying not far from here tonight, I must admit. So she's in our county tonight.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm sure she'll pop in for a visit.
She's doing her Jubilee tour at the minute, so yeah.
I know she's still upset about that thing with King James, but at some point
I know.
Right?
Say hello.
All right. Darlin, tell us any final thoughts you have about the Google Drive, and tell us what the biggest story right now going on in Brazil is.
So I think the Google Drive will be, it will be very useful, but very useful for who want to share and to use this kind of cloud stuff. But I think here in Brazil can be very useful for the small businesses here. So it's pretty interesting. I'll check it out. I want to see it, to get more involved with this. And it was very good to part of this.
What's the biggest thing going on in Brazil, like today or this week or recently? It could be in your little town, or it could be in your county, or the whole country of Brazil. What's something everyone's talking about over there? We're interested to find out.
But okay, but you want to know about technology, everything?
Anything, technology or politics or news, anything at all. What are folks speaking about in Brazil right now?
So last days ago, a group of university students there was trying to go to a party in another city, a neighbor city, and they just gone, I think. Anyone know what happened with them? So everyone's talking about this.
Are they okay? Were they they're missing, or what's the deal?
They're totally missing. We don't know if they die, or I think four university students, and they. So it's a sad news, but everyone's talking about this now.
Well, please keep us updated on that. That's sad news. Yeah, keep us informed on what's going on that issue.
Okay.
We'd love to have you back. You're a great guy, and you sound good and look good, and it's awesome. But yeah, please keep us informed on that. Because folks are watching. Okay, Bruce, in Lynchburg, Virginia, tell us your final thoughts on Google Drive, and tell us what the biggest story in Lynchburg or Bedford or Amherst or Appomattox and on and on. Tell us what's going on over in your neck of the woods.
Well, I would say, first of all, that the Google Mall is expanding. Now, whether or not the Google Drive will be an anchor store equivalent, I don't know. It would be nice one day if they would install a food court, and instead of Amazon.com, we could actually order our groceries from a Google derivative. But anyway, probably the biggest thing going on here in Lynchburg that you might be interested in is some discussion as to whether or not Mitt Romney should come and speak at Liberty University or not. So, interesting.
Well, that would probably be easier to get during the nomination rather than in the November thing, but we'll see. But it's a large part of his base, so right. I imagine they'll get him.
Yeah, they'll have him speak, and so they should. I think it's a great platform and a forum for people to hear and make up their minds.
And for folks watching who don't know the reference, one of my newspapers is in Lynchburg, and I used to live there, and Liberty University is there. That's a school founded by the late Jerry Falwell, who was originally an independent Baptist minister and then a Southern Baptist minister, or vice versa, or both.
You got it right.
Okay. And he was the founder of the Moral Majority. He was one of those, in a way, polarizing figures, but I met him a few times when I was down there, and one of the most interesting people I've ever met, and actually a lot of folks view him only in a political sense because he was on Nightline all the time and stuff, but he was also one of the funniest people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Really hysterical, and he would make fun of people. I sang at a wedding where he was the pastor, and he made a big deal about looking at my lyrics before I went out, and he said, like, well, let me see if this is appropriate, and he was like picking on us. He was just so much fun.
Yeah.
He was a giant man. He was just someone I think was really interesting, and his sons. I know both of his sons, Jerry Jr. and Jonathan, who have taken up the reins at one in the church and one in the university, and it's interesting. Liberty is the largest private university in the United States, and the largest Christian university in the world. So they've come a long way from the days when Jerry Sr. cleaned out the Donald Duck bottling company, the Donald Duck soda bottling factory, a story you've heard a million times, Bruce, and formulated some kind of crazy church with 16 people, and it just grew and grew into this massive thing. So,
I think one of the other significant things to say about him is that he was the kind of person who was able to forge a genuine, warm, sincere relationship with Larry Flint, the publisher of Hustler. I mean, so he was an interesting character for sure.
Tell us the background real quick. It all started, and then you pick off from here. It all started when...
No screen shares, please, Bruce.
Say again, Oleg?
No screen sharing, though, on this topic.
Correct. Yeah, we'll do a private hangout later, folks. It'll be a $4.99 admission fee. Larry Flint did a parody ad showing an outhouse, saying that Jerry Falwell was having sex with his mother, and Jerry Falwell Sr. was having sex with his mother in the outhouse, and this Jerry Falwell sued Larry Flint for defamation of character. And this was a big case, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court about the whole concept of whether a public figure has a different standard than like Oleg would, or Lord Parker would, or Anthony would, because they're famous, and whether it's open season on famous people. And this has affected us to this day. So, Bruce, give us a quick synopsis of that case, and what the impact was, and what the aftermath was, the surprising aftermath that you referenced.
Well, I don't know all of the details, and certainly not of the case, but I think one of the interesting things in that particular case, the Supreme Court held in a unanimous 8-0 decision, although Anthony Kennedy took no part in the consideration of the case. I'm looking at the article here for some information, that free speech prohibits awarding damages to public figures to compensate for emotional distress intentionally inflicted upon them. But I think, as I recall, the main thing was when Larry Flynt was shot, and I'm not exactly sure of the timing of all this, that Jerry Falwell reached out to him, and that's how the relationship began in my mind and memory. So. So I think just having compassion for people, even people you disagree with. I mean, wouldn't the world be a better place if more people were able to do that?
It's about being a good witness, and I know we have a mutual friend, Steve Newman, who's a state senator down there, who's like my best friend, and his dad is Roy Newman, was in the prison ministry, and he's a wonderful guy, and I love him to death. I love the whole family. But yeah, that was interesting. And then after when he died, to have I think Larry Flynt was at the funeral, right?
That's correct. And I'll post a link in the.
Post it as a comment under the YouTube video, if you would, and the
sure
live
will.
Player here, which will revert to the recorded version.
It's an
but
interesting.
It's something when folks so wildly different in every possible, it'd be like Sean Hannity and. Some MSNBC correspondent collaborating on something, or that famous Bill Clinton and George Bush, ad that they did for the victims in Haiti. I mean, it was just, wow,
what's his name? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. In this article in the Los Angeles Times, by Larry Flynt himself, he stated, just the beginning of this article, he said, "The first time the Reverend Jerry Falwell put his hands on me, I was stunned. Not only had we been arch enemies for 15 years, his beliefs and mine traveling in different solar systems, and not only had he sued me for $50 million, a case I lost repeatedly, yet eventually won in the Supreme Court, but now he was hugging me in front of millions on the Larry King Show." If you watch that show, that was an incredible, incredible thing. But anyway, so just a little tidbit about.
That is interesting, and if you're ever in Lynchburg and you get to Liberty, it's really interesting to go in. They have a museum, and you can see like the old TV cameras and all kinds of memorabilia about Jerry Falwell's rise to the top of the television of evangelical world. It's really interesting, and I'm friends, good friends, and with Jerry Jr. And I think I was I did not agree with him on everything, his dad, but it was fascinating to watch that ride, and it was tragic. I remember when I texted my friend Steve down there, and when there were rumors that he had a heart attack and he was found in his office and stuff. It was very sad, but he was a very controversial but a very kind man. And he cared about people. And he went to, like Chris Matthews on MSNBC, he talks about politicians. And he, of course, is the polar opposite of Falwell. And he would talk about politicians, and he talked about, because he used to work, I don't know if it was Tip O'Neill or Tom Foley. I think it was Tip O'Neill. And he said, these are the guys that go to the funerals, they go to the weddings, they go to the picnics in the community. They're real people. They don't just do the fancy stuff. And so, that was the thing there. It was just somebody local who was a big name, and he kind of put Lynchburg on the map, for better or worse, depending on your political persuasion or, religious views. And I want to get into all that stuff. But,
sure.
Yeah, it was. But any final thoughts, Bruce, and then we'll go to Anthony.
No, that's it.
All right. Okay, Anthony Klauser, any final thoughts on Google Drive, and what's the biggest story going on right now in Rochester, New York?
Well, as far as Google Drive goes, and I wanted to pull this up exactly so I can say it. It's interesting because the maximum file size on Google Drive is 10 gigabytes. On SkyDrive, it's well, we'll skip SkyDrive. We'll go back to SkyDrive. We'll go to the smallest first. iCloud is 25 megabytes. So Google is 10 gigabytes. iCloud is 25 megabytes, and if you pay, it's 250 megabytes. Dropbox is 300 megabytes, and SkyDrive is 2 gigabytes. So Google Drive's maximum file size is 5 times larger than any of the competition. So that should be interesting. But I think what will be the most interesting is as the Google Apps companies start to adopt it and how they use it, and that might be the biggest thing that potentially makes Google Drive down the road a bigger cloud storage service than the other ones.
And what's the biggest story going on locally in Rochester, New York, or in New York State, or a nearby town that's interesting? What's the deal in your neck of the woods?
Well, I actually had to think about this for a while, but once I realized what it was actually pretty obvious. And Nerese Slaughter, which up until last year was the chair of the House Rules Committee in Congress, and is a very strong member of Congress in this part of New York State. Well, the district lines have been redrawn, and now Maggie Brooks, which is Monroe County's county executive, has decided that she's going to run directly against Nerese Slaughter. And Nerese Slaughter, if I can find this correctly, she's been serving in Congress since 1993. So obviously this isn't, this is a huge, person to challenge for Maggie Brooks. But I guess throughout her entire history, and I'm not going to pull it up because I'm not going to pull it up quickly enough, but Maggie Brooks has never lost an election. So it should be a fight of the Titans come November.
That'll be interesting. There's a similar situation going on in Virginia with former governor and George Allen, former Senator George Allen, who famously lost the election to Jim Webb based on the Macaw story, where there was someone videotaping him at a campaign rally, and he called the person who was probably the only dark-skinned person in the room or outside there macaw. And then there was controversy over what kind of, was that a racial epithet, and he denied it and blah, blah, blah. But he lost the election to Jim Webb, and then Jim Webb, who was viewed largely as a pretty moderate to almost conservative Democrat, pro-defense, a former defense secretary, and so he is the presumptive Republican nominee, and the Democrat nominee is the former Virginia governor and former Republican National Committee chairman. So they're neck and neck. I think the latest Rasmussen poll I got today was 45 to 44 in Allen's favor, which is well within the margin of error. And you'll hear a lot about the Virginia race for two reasons. One, because it's neck and neck. Two, because it's two former national figures. And three, because it's right next to Washington, D.C., so all the national media can cover it really cheap. Right. Not necessarily that order. So you'll be hearing all about the Tim Kaine and George Allen race nationally. So and also because it's considered it's a state that Barack Obama won when he was running for president first time, and Virginia had not voted Republican since 1964 with Lyndon Johnson. So whether they which way they go this time will be interesting. So you'll be hearing a lot about that. But right now it's neck and neck. But anyway, I want to thank Oleg Moskalinsky from Kirkland, Washington, and also the official ambassador from Apple Computer. I'm just kidding. And then of course His Grace Lord Parker in the United Kingdom. Always a pleasure, sir.
Oh yeah.
From Lynchburg, Virginia.
For us that is.
Exactly. From Lynchburg, Virginia, my good friend Bruce Turner, who is, if you combine all of our vocal skills together, we cannot touch him. He is the supremes of spoken audio. And then Anthony Klauser, who we're still trying to get some kind of microphone to. and we love, with all our hearts. But thank you guys so much. This is great. This is a great discussion on Google Drive, and as usual, we got to meet new people, and all the stuff that Google innovates with, all the stuff they bring out, all the new features they add. The biggest thing is the Hangout to me, and the whole ability with Google Plus, including with Hangouts, to meet new people. Because all of us here, Bruce, Anthony, Lord Parker, and Oleg, all of us met because of Google Plus. We never would have met on Facebook. We never would have met on Twitter. So if you're watching this for your first Google Hangout right now on YouTube, please check out Google Plus because it is so awesome. It's a great way to meet new people who share your interest. My goal is, or my advice to you is, get on there and do a search for things that interest you. Gardening, ham radio, politics, NASCAR, anything. And circle people who post interesting things about that, and you'll meet a whole bunch of new friends. And you'll find incredible access. All of us have been able to access new people who are famous or celebrities or very important in their field of work through Google Plus that you could never access any other way. So it's really interesting and fascinating. And if you have a couple brain cells to put together, and you can speak in complete sentences, and you're interested in anything, you'll find someone who will be a wonderful person to engage with here on Google Plus. So anyway, thanks so much for watching the Hangout tonight. I'm sorry we didn't do it yesterday. There was a technical glitch, but it was awesome. And when I click close, it's going to disconnect us all. But this was awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Oleg.
Thanks, Dan.
Parker, Bruce, Anthony. I love all you guys.
Cheers, Oleg. Bye, Bruce.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's great to have friends like you guys. And thanks to all the folks watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. And of course, we'll see you Friday. Huh?
Breaking announcement. I just passed 2,000 followers.
Congratulations. Woo! I remember I got to break when you passed 1,000. But anyway, everyone have a wonderful time. We'll probably do this, I try to do this every day if possible. But definitely Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, midnight or 1 a.m. GMT, depending on what crazy stuff we do with our time zones here in the United States. We'll have our episode of Google Plus Week, which is the #1 show on Google Plus. So I hope you'll watch. It was wonderful talking with you guys, engaging with you in the YouTube live comments and Google Plus. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you hopefully tomorrow. Worst case, we'll see you Friday for Google Plus Week. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
Bye.
It was a pleasure and honor, as always, to hang out with my friends. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.